Рад вас всех приветствовать. Меня зовут Алексей Мунтян. Мне выпала сегодня большая
Let us
честь
begin.
модерировать
Just a second. My name is Alexei Muntian, and I will be
И сегодня
moderating this session
я
about the
надеюсь,
leaks
очень
and
интересно и
incidents, and
увлекательно погрузимся в эту тематику с моими
today
коллегами.
we will be
Сегодня рядом со
exploring
мной
this
на
topic
этой
with my
секции будут
colleagues.
выступать
I'm
Владимир
joined
Генкин,
today by
директор
Vladimir Genkin,
Департамента обеспечения
the head of the
кибербезопасности
Department
Минцифры
of
России. Пожалуйста,
InfoSec of the
Владимир,
Russian Ministry of Digital
аплодисменты.
Development. Let's welcome.
Рядом со мной сидит очаровательная
Next to me
Иоспа,
is
которая является
Anna
руководителем международных
Iospa.
проектов
She's the head
компании
of the
Анна.
international projects of the SDEC company. Hi.
Также сегодня с нами будет Андрей
And also we are
Арефьев,
joined today by
директор по
Andrei
инновациям компании
Arefiev,
InfoWatch.
the Innovations Director of the InfoWatch company.
И еще, конечно же, с нами будет сегодня
And
Дмитрий
also,
Гузеванов, технический
It's
директор
Dmitry
Азбуки
Kuzavanov,
Вкуса.
the technical director of the Azbuka Vkusa
И
food
последний, но
retailer.
не по значению, с нами,
And
конечно
last
же,
but not
Сергей
least,
Терехов,
of course, Sergei Terkov, head of the Center Expertise Centers of the InfoSec platforms.
Коллеги, я думаю, что бессмысленно, и я не
Okay,
буду тратить
friends,
время,
I
рассказываю, почему эта
do
тема
not
очень
want
важна и
to
актуальна. Все мы читаем
waste
СМИ,
our
все
time
мы
of
иногда даже
why it is
находим
important.
себя в
We're reading
утечках.
media
И,
and
конечно
we
же, с одной
find some
стороны,
leaks,
это, скажем
and
так, очень
sometimes we're
раздражающий
part of the
фактор, в
leaks.
некоторых случаях даже
It irritates, and in some cases,
это
it's
приводит к очень
in some
печальным
cases,
последствиям,
it
когда
has some very, very sad, very bad result because, like within a leak, you find out that your spouse was not on a trip and they were work on a neighboring street and felt great, staying with somebody else. But again, it's just kind of day-to-day understanding. Let's talk about a very important aspect with leaks. Like, first of all, we should not be self-complacent because somebody else is thinking, oh, it will never happen to us. As a matter of fact, this is not the case. And I guess the main idea is not if, but when. It can happen to any company, and not only company, but with any organizations, even with the government and public agencies. And today, as a part of this session, let's talk about practical aspects. How should we get ready for leaks? How should we overcome the fear of leaks and to avoid them?
Возьму на себя инициативу и сначала сам позадаю.
What I would like to do, I would like to ask questions to our panelists, and hopefully we'll have enough time for you guys to ask a couple of questions to our panelists. To the things related to the leaks. Anyway, and I think, hey, let's listen to Vladimir. Vladimir, we know that in different companies we have different capabilities. If let's talk about Yandex. Their capabilities could be absolutely different. And speaking about your information, does your ministry has any plans? Any plans of maybe developing some kind of recommendations for those companies who do not have a lot of resources? How should they get ready for possible info leaks and to avoid them and to recover from them? Yeah, hello. It's a super important topic today for us, but I would like to apologize in front of our organizers. I did not read the question very, very well, but hey, let me just tell you that we have a huge problem with leaks in our country. I think it's a problem number one. Looking at different classes of incidents, I guess by leaks, we as a country and all of us, we failed. We did not manage, and we were great in many other things. But if I ask you, like, how about the ransomware or what kind of fallout you had from the DDoS attacks, and it's not going to be as bad, but leaks are really bad. The situation is really bad, and we could say that no, it's a personal data, it's not like super important. Probably now it can be treated as an attempt to justify the bad work, and that's why the government is having very paying close attention in trying to motivate companies by sort of like stick and carrot, those could be fines and different initiatives, and all of this is being done not to cut off business from any personal data or make it hard on them, but we do this to make sure that this problem would be in the focus, this problem to be seen, so you would not be able to put it off. And unfortunately, today we can see that you can make many more decisions from the leaks. We know that bigger companies are better in protecting their data than the mid-level companies and smaller companies. But again, it's about significance of each leak. Like if you're in top 5 or top 10 IT companies, if you have like 200 million entries, it's the one thing. But if you're like a pre-K, preschool, it's a different thing. Yes, it's bad, but it's a different scape and different, scope. And hey, the measures could be taken. And let's say that we are looking at the big IT companies and those who own personal data, and our attention is on them. And we can say that, hey, this kind of responsible approach, and we will scale up this story. And at the same time, we are gathering proposals from the cybersecurity, where there are different approaches. We're trying to aggregate them and then to say, okay, we can issue different recommendations to small businesses and medium businesses, and this is also possible. But at the same time, and like Maksud was saying today, and I've read it on the news, we came to understand that we have to begin not with protecting personal data, but by minimizing usage of personal data. And we've seen it in our own case. We've looked at ourselves and say, hey, when this leak is going to happen. And I want to tell you guys, all of you, that we are poorly protected. You can lift up your hand if you think that you're well protected. Well, yeah, thank you for your raised hand. Yeah, I see it. And me and my colleagues will try to come to you and say, hey, we're gonna prove you wrong. We're gonna prove you wrong. We've done like a huge number of different kind of polls with the cybersec companies. We can break into any company basically, and especially personal data. Personal data is treated in so many cases like data is huge. Again, just wrapping up my point, we've realized that why do we store like certain data? Let's delete it. Let's do just a windows of the data and keep the data from where they come from, and at least to encrypt in identifiers. Yes, we do have different approaches. So I want to encourage minimize usage of personal data and at least encrypt personal identifiers and be responsible, because the government is going to get you. If not today, then tomorrow. In a big way, in a small way. I'm done. Thank you. Thank you, Vladimir. You didn't answer my question anyway. But it looks like personal data are becoming toxic. You gotta be super careful when working with them. And anyway, you should not just mindlessly accumulate personal data. Maybe somebody else would like to oppose. Yeah, I would like to argue a little bit. Why are we saying that business, does not care about? Let's be honest. Okay, if 1,000 clients lost their personal data, it's their own problem, it's not the company problems. And like a Ross Telecom, they say that the leaks are main business problem. No, business does not have a problem with leaks. If you're looking at the medical sector, yes, it could be like commercials and stuff like that. Yes, this could be like take retail in IT. Let's say you have a leak, it's okay, that's fine, And unless the company will care about that, it will be happening like that. And we can't say just, okay, let's stop processing it. And computers supposedly are very protected. And again, our ministry, MDD, is saying about this bill of special fines for the leaks. Business will have a motivation. Why do we need to protect the personal data? Because, okay, today we do not have such a volume of leaks for PCI DSS of banks and payment information. We do not see that many leaks because, again, you may have your license revoked as a bank. And you can protect your data. We would like to see the same or almost the same with people's personal data. I would like to expand on that. I think that the scale and scope of a leak is not always critical. Sometimes you have like a small batch of very sensitive data, and it can really cut you down. If you have like a small company and your kid is in pre-K, preschool, it might be very sensitive for you. It's important information. We are focusing on the private data, but again, the leaks are more like about commercial secret. I'm not speaking about the state secret. Guys from retail, they are storing a lot of sensitive data. They do not want it to be leaked, and probably this is outside of the scope of the public regulation. That's a good point. I think it's a culture of dealing with data and knowing why we need this data. And trying to avoid the problem. But I think it's important to say, I'm saddened to see how many companies react to their leaks. It's they sort of like informationally they try to shut themselves down and to put up the brave face like we're fine. I want to ask Anna. Anna, could you please share, what are the good advice and bad advice in terms of PR activity? Because, unfortunately, I'm looking at the situation and I think that PR departments of some companies, they think yeah, no problem, we're doing fine. Kind of turning the blind eye. When I heard of the topic, I thought, oh wow, that's quite a topic. But we have a problem that private small business, you can get like a real information. What's really happened, it's difficult. And now, what is not good to do? There was a situation when basically live they kind of like dropped a lot of information, and the company said no, we didn't have it. But people are not stupid. They're watching, they're seeing, and when in the public information domain you're saying we're fine, but your app is not working, has not worked for 4 days, and your data is being stolen, that's not good because people think, hey, this company is saying we're fine, but there was a leak. What company thinks about me? They do not care. So when this kind of situation happens, I advise don't be silent. Say what it is, because people will know that you care, you really care. At least you're not lying to them. Like, what's worse, that you're not cared for or you're lied to? I would say, as a consumer, that if I have a certain loyalty level to a company, but if shit happens to anyone, but if the company has taken all the actions to recover and they gave me the truth, maybe it's not public, but at least send me a message, private message, I'm sorry, your data have been, stolen, and they would give me some kind of compensation, not even financial, my loyalty would increase to this company. As a matter of fact, when we first began, I thought, let's do some webinars, and live streams. And I wrote to different companies. None of them told me, yeah, let's do that. We began to launch our podcast, and it was me and my InfoSec guy, and we had been talking. Everybody was closed. I think it's a big problem. And also wanted to ask all of our speakers who would like to answer this question. In the Russian law of personal data protection, there is no obligation to inform inform people if their data has been leaked or stolen. Should companies do that? And if yes, why? In the very beginning of the discussion, you've highlighted this case, and basically, had the company told them that your personal data had been stolen and your location is known, you could deal with the situation. You could avoid some potential family conflicts, maybe. But I think it's a social responsibility to tell people that part of their private data have been disclosed. It's a moral issue. Yes, it's a moral issue, but I also want to say that when a company had a leak and they tell about it as soon as possible to victims, you can minimize negative consequences. People will appreciate it because you give them a sort of like a time handicap to deal with negative consequences, and this is a very important part, and sometimes many companies overlook it. They have like a business-centric approach, and what Vladimir mentioned, I think it's also a good point. It's a good point that all of us, we have to develop a certain culture of working with leaks and dealing with leaks. Russia is not the only country where we have like a big problem with leaks. In the post-pandemic time, we've seen that this has become a huge problem. When things have really migrated into digital, it's a social issue anymore. It's not a business issue, because we are all digital, and I think that the business community and the government have to make it like socially acceptable. We are not gonna be like 100% immune from the leaks. It's simply not feasible. But at the same time, I would like to ask your colleagues from the InfoWatch company, what do you think? What if a company does not have any money to buy tools to protect, and the sales guys are saying, "Hey, we can develop the protection system from the leaks, and this is the price tag." And the guy is saying, "Hey, is that a price or is that a phone number?" What should you do? And how can you build such a system? When we have had our internal discussion, it looks like, okay, I am like a vendor rep, we do the protection, and sometimes the prices are, you get a sticker shock. It's like bees against honey. What I'm trying to say, there are several moments. We have our expertise center. We build analytics for leaks. But one basic outcome I can tell you right now from this kind of analytical look, there are two types of leaks related to cyber criminals and internal like mess. Number one, cyber criminals, you know what to do. Sometimes you have like threat actors, intruders inside, some reckless people. And again, the second aspect I would like to emphasize, that all InfoSec, it's about decreasing probabilities. It is not about some absolute achievement. It doesn't matter what you do, you are simply decreasing a probability. And this is it. So based on these two concepts, we can act. And actually, the government knows about that. It knows that that's positive thing. That's positive. They know it. And the first idea is, hey, let's say an employee, if there is an internal bad actor or careless guy, they get an account with access rights. So when you do basic things, when the guy is like laid off, you disconnect them. It's great. It is great because again, if you look at the data we have, a lot of leaks happen when the guy just left the company, but they still have access, being able to identify this kind of account and block this account. That's cool. That's the right path. The second aspect, like government knows about it. They do have insights. Yes, they do. Yeah. And access rights. This is like super crucial. Like you should not give unlimited access, so you have to minimize the attack surface. So your credentials should be only with those who have to have these credentials, and they have to have like a tiered approach. Sometimes people can copy some tools and send it somewhere without even knowing what they do. And the third important point, really important, explain to people what your company cares about and have them put a signature on the paper. It's about legal support. It is important. It is important when you're using these special tools and when you do not. Like, how can you say that, hey, you've done something wrong if you haven't explained it to them? They've done it because they believe that, why? I'm optimizing my work. I just copied to Google Disk, Google Drive, some kind of document, which was leaked. It's a problem. Explain to them, you should not do this. As I'm listening to it, looks like each problem is a person, personalized. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. I would like to give two advice. $2 million advice. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. It's a principle of minimal privileges about credentials and network access. Think before opening up any privilege. And secondly, update your software. Like a DLP in other systems, it's a cherry on the cake. Begin with your basic processes. Like one DLP will not help because you'll know, okay, like this married girl from accounting office in the domain, she's like a super admin. Does it mean that she can download whatever? Begin with the base and then you'll migrate to DLP or upgrade to DLP. Yes, we are minimizing access, and this is the foundation. And DLP is solving fundamental problem. You answer how do people use their rights. It's a cherry on a cake, but you cannot deal with it, okay? Yeah, sure, I get it. I understand. The next moment is really workable. Just tell me what kind of DLP has been implemented. Tell people you should not do this, and then tell them what you've implemented. Like, we know about you.
Смысл состоит в том, что как бы...
No, the whole point. No.
Вы скажите об
Это
этом.
очень тонко.
Tell the guys, you must not implement it, yeah.
Мы же говорим о том, что...
Бюджетные, вы помните?
You guys don't have any money, you don't have any budget for this kind of deployment.
Осторожно, без зубов, но засосет насмерть.
Слушайте, ну вот у вас в офисах
Yeah.
наверняка
Well,
висят камеры.
in
Они
your
все
offices
работают.
probably
Нет,
have
они не все
cameras,
работают.
your
Нет,
CCTV.
всё правильно.
No,
А
they
еще
are
очень
not.
классно. Иногда потом
And,
сообщать, что
sometimes
вот мы тут вывели
you
вот
tell
такую-то
people, hey
проблему.
guys, we have identified
Ну, даже
this
если вы её не вывели,
kind
что
of a
вам
problem.
мешает?
If
Это
you
просто
didn't,
взбадривает компанию, держит всех в
you're
тонусе.
simply kind of shaking up the company and
Понимаешь,
people
службы бы есть,
kept
у нее
up
есть
in check.
специальный
Okay,
инструмент,
they have
и он
InfoSec, they
проявляет
have
свои
special tools,
чудеса работы, да? Прям.
and they can, keep
Да, это тоже новое.
people
Это же
accountable.
часть у
And
вас
puts
нет
this
денег,
this
вы
kind of
вешаете
CCTV
пост, потому что у вас нет
surveillance.
людей, чтобы обрабатывать
You don't have
это
any
видео,
people
вешаете
to
пустышки,
process
да,
this
нормально?
video.
Или просто не пишите
You put
информацию.
like a
Но общую дисциплину
dummy
повышает.
camera. It's okay, but it will increase the discipline. What I want to say is that it looks like primarily we're saying that 85 or even 90% of the leaks are happening from within a company.
Тут вопрос, как мерить.
So we are speaking about within the company. How do you measure it? How do you measure it? And I would like to move on to our next question. Based on the Russian communications dog watch, it's about whether a company is getting message that database has been stolen, or another scenario when a company gets a proposal from a guy to buy a competitor's database. I want to ask you, Victor, what should you do? What should you do? Do they have any cases? Yes, we did. I would like to talk about DLP, but anyway. Yes, we will have yet another session. As a matter of fact, 3 years ago, when I was head of the InfoSec in Azbak-Avkusa food retailer, now I can share this case, and some guys came to our office, they came to the CEO personally, and they offered him to buy a client's database and all the clients with all the data, with all the purchases from one of the largest retailers in Russia. You know it. It's a top 5 retailer. For one, I think it was one Bitcoin, right? We said no, but we helped our colleagues. This is what we've done. We have our partners for InfoSec, some other companies, and And when these guys came to us and we just checked, like, that they do have the data, we signed up, we've signed an account, we've checked, yes, they did have this information. We've spoken to our partners, and like, do they work with their competitors, like, do they have relations? And then we passed on this conversation to them, and they had like this conversation with these perpetrators. They were able to identify their home IP address in Moscow, and then they could basically go to law enforcement. They could go to law enforcement and then to open a criminal investigation. You know, he's writing things down on his smartphone. Well, the sad part of this case that the company, they did not have any InfoSec and still did not have it. And despite we've given them the report, basically, guys, look, there's a guy who is selling your database from within your company, he's in your network. The guys did not do anything about it. I've published this story in my social media. It's too bad and it's too sad, and I hope that something will change and people will be interested in dealing with this. But hey, anyway, what do you do? What do you do? Never buy it. Never buy this kind of stolen databases, because when it happens, it probably will happen to you as well in the future. Help to your competitors and whoever, you know. We're speaking about different things, and also you have to act in a right way so that these kind of guys who are abusing their privileges could be found. Thank you. And what I want to say that any message, any communication about a link with confirmation basically creates like a Schrödinger leak, like you have it and you don't have it because the facts have not been confirmed. On one hand, this kind of supervisory body is expecting that the company will notify them and identify it as a leak, and then in 72 hours from obtaining this kind of message, the company will have to again notify Russian communications watch party, like whether they have had a leak, yes, no, and what kind of aspects they had, what kind of information they had, and then to identify this fact. But I believe that if we'll take a look at what is happening today, we have a great pool of companies who have already begun investing in their information security to minimize any chances for a leak. But we have even bigger pool of the companies who are contractors or subcontractors for these market leaders. Last year, 3 of my clients had personal data leaks. In 2 cases out of 3, it happened through the contractors. And I want to ask you, I think it's very relevant, about how do you ensure safety of the whole supply chain? Because again, it's a very important question, and I would like to ask this question to Dmitry. Go ahead, please. Oh yeah, to Sergey. Yeah, to Sergey. Hi guys, good evening. Maybe I will not provide the full answer to you, but I'm Sergey Terekov, and I'm head of the InfoSec department of the Platformix company. Our case is quite unique because we never had any leak, but based on the name of the company, like we don't belong here, right? You would think, but we decided that probably this would be like a perfect section to discuss a problem. We faced the following problem. We've been in the market for about 30 years, 30. Yeah, and we had some incidents about InfoSec, but basically in 3 years we've never had any like a critical event. But here, for the first time, we've seen like a APT attack, persistent attack. It was like a target attack. I'm not going to give you all the details of what has happened in our company, and like what happened like 1 hour after this section. We'll have yet another report of how did we react and how the situation was changing, what we did, what kind of mistakes we've done, what kind of lessons we've learned. But I would like to raise this problem because as we're speaking now, do we need to notify individuals that their data have been stolen and stuff? I believe that, as it was pointed out already, a leak today, it is not a problem with this kind of legislation because most of the companies, all my data has already been leaked. It's been stolen, my passport and my data, and where I live, my phone number, it's all available on the media. But if you have a target attacked via your contractor, and we were not the goal because as an integrator, we know that nobody cares about us. We do not have like any financial operations compared to other companies. Basically, we are a project company. And we get paid, and that's it. Again, it's a new trend. It's a new trend. And while previously, stats and global stats in the positive technologies, we've seen the increased number of attacks. Before I faced it, for me, it was like a marketing tool, But now I can say for sure, we know that we are not alone here in this. And I want to say that, yes, we're quite lucky that we have our internal competence, and I'll give you more detail. With kind of attackers, we're lucky with the attackers. But, our problem is that this incident, the word incident is like a negative connotation to it, right? I mean, incident sounds bad. And when company thinks like, should we inquire to the press, should we do the press conference about a leak or it's quite provocative because, again, any leak, it sounds bad, it sounds terrible, guys, you gotta be scary about that, but it's a problem. And maybe, again, the problem is that it sounds negative, and maybe on the legislative level, we have to introduce a term like a delicate situation instead of an incident. Yeah, like those days, And then this kind of delicate situation will be much easier to talk about, and people will be more open to communicate instead of an incident. All these initiatives which are being discussed today, one big topic is you have to notify. We have it, and it's going to be like more and more tough. It's the stance of regulator. But before the regulations, most of us are like cybersec professionals in cybersec. It's a small circle. It's a small world. We see like 15,000 people. We know one another, but at least like big players, they know one another for sure. And just for you personally, like if you had an incident, if you're trying to cover incident, to hide it, it's very, very bad for PR. And today, a company will say, no, we didn't have anything, it's fine, we're fine. And thank you, you guys, for speaking about that. And I mean, kudos and respect. Because when we admit a problem, it's the first step to get out of the problem. Each of you should feel it's like your personal dignity. You have an incident. The market will not understand you if you hide it. We have a new culture. You can say, hey, I know it. Yeah, it's fine. My business is again. That means you're not able to deal with it. So this kind of social responsibility, it has to grow. It has to happen, at least in our case. Sounds like a plan, Vladimir. But, anyway, we have some questions. How can we decrease amount of parenthesis delicate situations in law enforcement? Because you can buy data, you can buy a passport, 30,000 rubles. Are they gonna say like FSB, Federal Security Service? They had like a
Читать новости.
incident. You can read news. Read the news like 2 weeks ago on the
В
news.
новостях это прослеживалось.
Like on the news, you could read it. The whole departments.
Некими оперативно мероприятия проводились. Вот, так
They've
что, да,
done
эта
some
история,
kind of
которая
search
тоже видна. Ну, то есть государство на себя
operations.
смотрит
I mean,
точно
the
так же, как и
government
коммерческий. Мы не отделяем.
is viewing itself as a
Есть,
commercial
кстати,
entities.
по лаборатории Касперского тут нельзя,
We do
да,
not make a
рекламу делать. Мы не
distinctions.
делаем рекламу.
Kaspersky Lab, for example,
Было
Kaspersky
исследование
Lab
по утечкам,
company,
и
they've issued
его
a
тоже
research
знаю, он
about
шел закрытую
about
часть и
leaks,
открытую.
and
Но точно у них есть отчет по утечкам.
they do have a
И там
report
есть,
about the leaks,
откуда текло,
and
по
they say
отраслям,
like
по, соответственно,
the
кто
sources
первый,
by
где там
industries
первое
and
место
who were the first
занимал,
ones, and
Ну, так
of course,
получилось.
retail was
Последний
number
год, да,
one.
ритейл
It just
больше
happened in
всех
the last
пострадал.
year. The retail
И,
was like
и там все есть, да, можно
took a big
посмотреть,
blow,
что и у
and you can
госорганов
look, you
тоже
can
течет.
see
Мы
that
тоже
even
понимаем,
the
что мы
governmental
точно
agencies
так
that
же
had some
разместимся.
leaks,
Мы
and we
точно
know
так же
that
крайне
we also have to protect
беспокоимся
ourselves,
за,
and
соответственно,
we
свои
are
те
deeply
хранимые
concerned,
данные,
deeply
которые
concerned about our data.
Немножко про другое, потому что если вы сейчас войдете
I wanted to say about
данные
different things,
клиента
like if you want to
Азбука
buy
вводите, но
clients' data from
если
Azbuk of
захотите
Kusa,
купить
that's
Роспаспорт,
zero. But
то
if you want to buy
клиент
like
Азбуки
Rospasport,
Вкуса.
представьте.
who cares about Azbuk of Kusa clients, you know?
Паспорт,
Так,
чтобы
погодите.
кредит
Why do you need a
оформить,
passport?
но клиента Азбуки
To,
Вкуса.
Ну хорошо,
but
доставка
the clients, you know,
Яндекс.Лава,
okay, the
посидите,
Yandex
кому-нибудь
delivery, who
возмущаетесь,
cares
50
about
штраф,
that?
Как так? Там сколько утекло?
You know,
100 тысяч?
how many
Мы же говорим
100,000
про то,
contacts
кому нужны.
have been stolen, you know?
Мне,
Like
например, обидно,
who
что я
wanted
утек
it?
из Азбуки Вкуса, не из Азбуки
It's too
Вкуса,
bad that
там, и
my data has
откуда
been
вы-
stolen,
сейчас
you know.
заходите, не знаю, Глаз Бога все
Like if you
знают, да?
come, like
Заходим в Глаз Бога, там есть все об вас, там есть
in
Роспаспорт,
Glass
там
Boga,
есть
you
дата
have
рождения,
everything.
ваши
You have your
маркировались,
passport,
там есть
your
ваши адреса.
reports, your addresses, and you name it, all of that, you know. They are collecting it from different locations. Sorry,
Это крик боли.
sorry, I just lost track. I just lost track.
У
Yeah,
меня точно так же есть информация.
yeah. In the same way, I have an information that what are you buying, where do you live, and all that. Yes, you have to protect it. You have to protect it.
Здесь же вопрос
Absolutely.
именно к цене. Ну, то есть
I
вот
guess
я,
it's a question
например,
about price, and
очень сейчас основательно подходим
you know,
как
we're
раньше,
moving on to
усиленно к безопасности учетных записей ЕСИ.
to ESC credentials because we get new services and new cons, a new perpetration, new frauds. You wanna buy it, you know. The databases are becoming more liquid and more demand, more supply, and we have many more problems than we've had before. And we have many more services, and it's not only about the governmental agencies. The more expensive the data which you are storing.
Безусловно, ценность данных является важным моментом.
Yeah, the data value is becoming greater. But what I want to say that I have another question. I think it is not a secret, if you guys have been on the DLP market for a long time, that InfoWatch was saying that we lost some commercial proposals. Like basically some valuable information has been leaked. Investigation revealed that competitors kind of fabricated this kind of incident to give negative publicity. There are affordable available PTNs. And what do you do when somebody is saying, hey, if I may use you as an example, that Azbuk of Kusa retailer, they had a PDNs leaked. Can I comment, please? No, this is not true. This is not true. When we are discussing any bills about possible fines for leaks, it's a cornerstone. They are for the market of blackmailing, because you can blackmail X company, whatever company. What if it'll get, what if it'll get justifying, because I kind of fabricated this leak. And when in the public channels we get this like a small samples and the data about a leak, if it is not only like a public identifiers when this database we've had like several leaks, this leaks, but anyway. There was like a 3 columns, family, first name, family name, the phone number in email. Frankly, you cannot attribute it, because this kind of set of like 3 fields, there are many places, but many leaks, special samples which are given. There are different identifiers, data when it was created. There are some cases when you can easily check it or trying to cheat on everyone and say, no, we did not have a leak. But again, the story is like within 24 hours, you can say, yes, I do have these records in my database or not. That's an interesting exercise. We also do it. We also do it because on the госуслуги or public services, you have accounts and they're integrated. And all these, like, okay, another leak from the госуслуги or public services. We have very tough SLA. We have quickly identify like what has been leaked, right data, wrong data, like who leaked. If we're passing on data to a third party, we absolutely have to know who we've given a certain data set. Dear colleagues, we're finishing up our session. Let's take some questions from the audience. And one question I would like to ask to Vladimir and the second one to everyone. Vladimir, in terms of such an approach, does it make sense to motivate business for them to give up like end-to-end identifiers like an email, a phone number, to create your credentials, your account? How about some unique identifiers and not to use those identifiers, which easily can, you can even link leaks, right? Because you can compare you can compare different leaks, and you can combine build new combined database like a phone number. If I got a phone number, you put it in the rapid system payments, you know where people have their accounts, in what bank. It's great information. So in terms of like giving up this kind of end-to-end identifiers, does it make sense? Have you been discussing that, and what do you think? A lot of different initiatives are being put up, and one of those were recently. Yeah, IT is growing by leaps and bounds, and in the last like half a year, I've seen like several super radical proposals from financial organizations. You know, we know how this is happening when we are attempting to take a loan in the bank, and then you get a lot of phone calls from kind of strange guys and companies. There are many ideas, but we have to weigh all the pros and cons. And as an infosec, I have to say, yeah, let's encrypt it. Let's take away all the personal data. It will be great. Like a switched off system is the safest one, right? But we are moving along with the times. We have to develop our IT, and our tech development is like that. So if it's going to be slowing it down, this is wrong. And the phone numbers, like we did not have any legislation, neither requirements in the world about that. But all of a sudden, on the internet, you know, everybody's using their passports. You know, all of us, you're using your passport. Your passport is like a phone number. Your passport is everywhere. It's all connected to your phone number. It's a separate story. This is the new world. What do we do with it? We have to sit down, we have to talk, and any modern story, especially if we'll give up passwords, if you'll give up or multi-factor identification, this is great. That is, again, if I got you right, a phone number is not cool to use it everywhere. You have to think, you gotta be careful. No, I mean, this is great, right? No, again, what I'm trying to say is that you have to deal with it depending on what kind of advantages you can get out of it. Yes, it's great to use ID, identification system, when it's built into my browser. You just you do one click and boom, that's it. It's a super. You don't have to come up with the passwords, and there are less leaks. How do we decrease amount of data stored in the system? That's yours and mine challenge. We can regulate like a responsibility for personal data protection, and you'll get another opportunity. Come to a company and say, let's decrease amounts of information stored. You know, let's do this and encrypt this and do not store these, so that the government would have like less headache. or be responsible. Thank you.
Комментарий, да, пожалуйста.
Да, вот вы подняли интересный вопрос. Вот возьмем,
Alex, you've
например,
raised interesting issue. Let's say that we have like a госуслуги, public services identifier. Many services enable you
Теперь, внимание, вопрос.
to use the service. Now,
Вы выбираете свой
what do you
персональный
do?
email или
Do you
выбираете
choose your personal
идентификатор в
email
госуслугах?
or госуслуги
Только
identifier?
идентификатор, никакого имейла.
Вот.
Only identify,
А
no
я делаю
email.
наоборот, потому что у каждого из
I
нас
do
своя
the
модель
opposite
голоса в
because all of
голове,
us
да?
have
Я,
our
например,
own
хочу,
like
чтобы государство знало обо мне
ideas.
поменьше.
I want the government
Да,
to
и
know
поэтому я выбираю
less
что-то
about
там
me.
стороннее, да?
That's
Вы
why
делаете
I
наоборот,
take away
вы
some
как бы
other
боитесь,
things.
что вас
You
взломают, поэтому выбираете госуслуги. Да? И мне кажется,
you
вот
are
этот вот
choosing
баланс, он
госуслуги
прям очень
side.
сложный.
So I think this
И да, я с
balance
вами
is
согласен,
very
на самом деле, по
delicate.
поводу баланса. Я уже
Yes, I would
неоднократно
agree with
об
you
этом
about the balance, and I want to say that
предложение о том, что давайте мы
I've heard some ideas and
классифицируем
proposals.
операторов.
Let's
Например,
classify
оператор может быть
personal
физическим
data
лицом.
operators. This could be even physical persons,
Да, там, на
individuals.
100 миллионов
We can
субъектов
build like a
персональных данных.
database, like
Давайте
100
мы
million
операторов классифицируем и сделаем,
objects, and
допустим,
let's
особо рисковых
identify
операций с
operators
персональными данными,
and
либо
make like a
лицензируем,
super
например,
risky
аккредитацию. Более
operations
того, например,
like
у нас,
under
например,
license or
это сейчас, вот,
we have
в
such an
году
example.
наступает в силу положение нового законодательства об обработке биометрических
Because
персональных
this
данных.
year
И
we have
для
a
того,
new
чтобы осуществлять
law on
биометрическую
biometrics.
идентификацию,
To do the
необходимо иметь
biometric
аккредитацию,
authentication,
а
you
для
have
того,
to
чтобы
pay
ее получить,
accreditation,
нужно
and to
выполнить
get
требования по
accreditation,
размеру
you have to
уставного капитала,
comply with
компетенциям,
like a charter
требования к
capital,
юридическим исполнительным органам,
competencies,
очень много
and
всяких других вещей.
there are a
И
lot
мне
of
кажется,
different
рано или
things.
поздно мы
And
можем к этому прийти, чтобы,
do you think that
условно
we
говоря,
may
обрабатывать персональные
eventually
данные, нужно иметь
eventually
аккредитацию.
arrive to that
Хотя
to
бы
process
просто
personal
начать
data?
модели. Как
You
вы
gotta be
думаете,
accredited.
коллеги? Вот есть у вас
What do you think about this idea, dear colleagues? Do you have any opinion?
Вот страшно про
Can I
биометрию
please say that it's great about biometrics? We cannot even work with the regular data. You're speaking about the
Мне
biometrics.
кажется, стоит этот вопрос отложить лет на 10.
I think the biometrics should be postponed for at least 10 years.
Уставной капитал, компетенции.
And as for the authorized capital and competencies,
Ни о чем,
and
кроме бумажной безопасности.
doesn't mean anything except like on paper kind of security. Let's talk about the real security. When the bank is hiring somebody, you know,
В
part-time,
том-то и дело,
remote,
что я как раз
that's
хотел бы эту
dangerous,
идею
you
с
know.
вами обсудить, потому что в моем
So I'd like to
представлении, мне
discuss
кажется,
it because in
совсем
my
формальные признаки,
opinion,
они
I think
неэффективны, да, то
these
есть
kind of
нужно смотреть
formal
на другое,
signs,
как
they're
на
not
это другое
efficient. We have to
смотреть,
look
как
at the
выявлять
different
профессионализм и
signs.
компетентность.
How can we
Мне кажется,
identify
это
the level
большая тайна,
of
потому что, по крайней мере,
professionalism? It's a
я не
big
знаю ни одну
secret.
методику, даже вот проверки внешних
I
поставщиков,
do not know of
которая
any
позволяла бы
methodology of double-checking, you know,
сделать
providers
уверенный вывод о том, что
to make sure that we
потребляющий
can
момент
confidently say that your contractors are competent. And the sad thing, they could be competent, but if in a year and a half, like this InfoSec team will leave from this company, what will they do?
Мне кажется, любая попытка зарегулировать что-то,
I
она
think
прям
any
находится под
attempt
риском.
to
Вот я привел
over-regulate is a
хороший
risky
пример.
one.
Телефонный номер, да.
That's a good
С одной
example.
стороны,
Your
это
phone
риск для
number.
конкретного, потому что
On one
все
hand,
могут
it's
узнать
a
по новому
risk.
номеру, где у меня
Anybody
есть счета в
can,
банках, но в принципе на этом все и
you know,
заканчивается, да.
see where my
А с другой
accounts
стороны,
are,
какое
in what
какое
banks.
удобство создало
And
это
on the other hand,
да. Мне очень
what
легко
kind of
обмениваться
convenience
деньгами.
I have?
И тем
It's
самым
very easy for me to
упрощаю
exchange
жизнь. И
money.
вот тут прям
I make my life
всегда
easier.
информационная безопасность — это всегда баланс
Again,
между
InfoSec, it's
удобством
always
и
about a balance
безопасностью. На
between
самом деле, мы
convenience
должны это
and
искать. Если мы сейчас
security.
всех зарегулируем,
If now we'll over-regulate everybody and say that any application to personal data, you gotta have like a certification, probably we'll just tighten all the screws and business will not have
Я с вами
room
согласен,
to grow.
просто вот даже сегодня в новостях я увидел,
Yeah,
что
sure. Even
вот
today on the
проходит
news,
уже
I've
по
seen
второму
that
чтению рассмотрение
State
законопроекта
Duma
о
is
специальном
considering
регулировании
a draft on
То есть, так или иначе,
regulating
мы всё равно
data processing
можем
centers.
прийти к ситуации, когда
It is in part we can come to a situation when a certain category of personal data operators or those companies who are processing personal data on behalf of operators, they'll be a part of subject to a special regulation. It's a trend. It's a trend. I don't fully share it, but unfortunately, I'm seeing that this kind of approach is very like a cookie cutter, and you think like it's like they say, if you are a hammer, everybody looks to you like a nail. You say no sanctions, you know, impose, prohibit, ban. But what we are lacking today is some practical guidelines for those who cannot afford neither a good InfoSec team nor a good DLP system, or even good lawyers who could help and not have a problem in a court litigation. Like
я как раз помогал своим
a
клиентам.
couple of advice from me because I was helping my competition to go through the court and court hearings. I can say that whenever I talk to my clients and with my clients, we sort of like working ready for litigations. Clients begin to fantasize and say that, hey, we will provide minimum information, we will be silent and sort of like give it up to the court. I think a better position will be proactive if you've been summoned to court and you are in court, or even communicating with the Russian communications watchdog. Be proactive. Be proactive and do take some specific steps. Like all clients who have dealt with a leak, they've initiated additional audit and initiated like a consultants, like InfoSec consultants, who were able to uncover the situation and understand what has happened. And again, do the staff trainings if you are in court, and even before the court. Not only tell them what you do, but actually give them facts and show specific numbers, how much company spent and how much was done, and I can assure you that court will be impressed. They always pay attention to like a bona fide nature of doing your business and working with your personal data. It's one of the things that I would like to make accent. Dear colleagues, let's give Q&A. Let's do a Q&A with our audience. Go ahead, please.
Коллеги, спасибо за дискуссию.
Thank you for this discussion.
Тимофей, компания SDEC.
My name is Timofey from this deck company.
Мало мы уделяем внимание.
We're saying that we do not pay enough attention to the leaks, and you've been speaking about the operator's classification. And my question is, I am the InfoSec pro, but again, in the personal data legislation, it says that this kind of data is related to subjects, if we had more like a clear classification of personal data, maybe this would simplify business. You could focus like, what is personal data? What about in a store or my phone number, my PO? Because as soon as you work with the personal data, they ask you, I have like this, is it personal data or not? And usually like everything is personal data. And business has a headache, yeah. It's a very, very big challenge, and people come to us like, let's categorize at least categories of personal data and level of liability for personal data. Let's name personal data, but today we have data which are like a special important in a special category. They are listed and just personal data. And unfortunately, the further detailization has not been done because the volume or level of data is huge. It's huge, and we cannot unify their importance. For example, your home address. Yeah, okay, people got to know your personal address. Okay, fine. And tomorrow, somebody will hit me in the head, because first they gave me like over-the-phone threats, and then actually it was like important data, but we did not think before about people's home addresses. And this applies absolutely to all the kind of data. Like I took a flight, I was returning stuff. Like we should not make like the tough category and just list them all. Last year, the adult store had a leak, like 18 million data was leaked. What do we say? And when you deal with it, when you work with it, it looks like no one was able to offer like a certain distinct category, but always when we have a leak, 99% of people will identify is it real or fake. Thanks, Vladimir. It's also about combination of data. Yeah. I want to give a command. Just imagine that you as a company will be imposed a fine against. And now, as a company, what are you going to do? You will say, no, these are not personal data. As soon as we identify, okay, name, family name, personal data, right? You will be subject to a fine.
Это одна из стратегий
Do you know what I'm saying?
да, на всякий случай. То есть отрицать, что это
Смысл
персональные
состоит в том,
данные.
что
Yes, exactly. My idea is, as a matter of fact, it's like a two sides of the coin. There are fines and companies trying to avoid it.
Дмитрий, Сергей, Анна.
Yeah, thank you, Dmitry, Sergey, Anna.
Дополнить нет? Или мы можем следующего?
Do you want to say something? Or next question, please go ahead.
Да, просто представьтесь, да, и вопрос.
Соберзянов, Казань.
Introduce yourself, please.
Опять-таки по поводу вот этих штрафов. Тема
Again, about these
в том, что,
fines.
при
or
потере
turnover
персональных
fines.
данных от 10 тысяч записей.
So if you lose personal data like 10,000 entries, there is a certain like fine,
Мы
right?
еще не знаем.
Возможно,
то
это
есть
еще не приняли, да, возможно. У меня
Maybe
один
this law has not been
рабочий, что считать
adopted,
одной записью?
but I have a question, like what is
Один
one
человек, фамилия,
entry?
имя, отчество и
It's
все
one
данные
person,
по нему.
name, family
Либо
name and all the
фамилия, имя,
data,
отчество, это
or it's
уже
just
три
the
записи.
first and second name is already like three
Очень хороший
entries.
вопрос. Ну, в моем бытовом представлении,
A
коллеги,
good
если что,
question.
поправят, да, я
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Короткий ответ. Послушайте, смотря как, ну, то есть, во-первых,
Oh, it's a super short answer. Like probably it's like legislative initiatives. So either it's going to be a number of subjects, and then it will be a number of subjects, or a number of entries. If it's number of entries, the number of physical lines, you know, it's basically a line. Like enter new line, like 7 entries. If it's subject, it will be as one subject. Vladimir, I just want to give an example. Let's say you're using a service, a taxi service, and each trip will be like an entry, right? Like 100 trips will be 100 lines. Okay.
Коллеги, кто-то еще хочет вопрос задать?
Any other questions, dear colleagues?
Да, пожалуйста.
Да, здравствуйте, я Артем. У меня ничего
Hi,
нет.
I'm Artyom.
Поздравляем вас.
No
да,
leaks yet.
Это успех.
Good.
Сегодня
That's good.
Аплодируем, коллеги.
Да, если Артем представится, откуда он
А это
упомянул.
А
правда
вот
или
это уже
официальная
будет
версия?
утечка, да-да-да. Это уже
Секунду,
будет
я
утечка.
очень люблю азбуку вкуса, но Владимир, вопрос у меня к
I love
Владимиру
this aspect of Kusa retail, but my
Владимир
question is
Николаевич,
to
очень внимательно
Vladimir.
смотрим отдельно за вашими выступлениями. Вопрос
We
такой,
are following
проект
you.
согласия вообще,
And my question is,
ну, в целом
this
как?
согласие or
Верим мы
agreement
в него, не
project,
верим, вот.
do we believe in it or not? To be or not to be?
Инициатива такая
Yes, we have an
внутренняя,
initiative.
рабочая, в рамках которой,
It's
наверное,
it's
было бы
under
неплохо дать возможность
evaluation. It would be great to give
узнать о согласии,
an
которое
opportunity to
предоставляется.
citizens about any kind of consent
Узнать их,
or
еще,
agreements,
возможно,
not only about consent, but also like to say to revoke it, to return it, you know.
И я очень надеюсь, что будет. Особенно если
I'm hoping that
все
it will
нам
happen.
помогут в его популяризации,
It'll
то
happen,
может быть
especially if
очень
it'll
сложно
become popular.
исправить на
Like
текущий
it's a
момент.
very, very
Не
difficult
могу сказать,
situation.
его
And now I
вероятность вообще даже
cannot
выше
say what's the
50%
probability.
или ниже. Но со своей стороны
If
мы
it's above
прикладываем
or below
любое количество
50%.
усилий, сколько у нас есть,
We do
столько
our
мы
best.
прикладываем. Мы считаем, что
We do
в
our
целом
best, and we believe that
непосредственное
all in
участие
all,
гражданина,
all in all,
в
when citizens are
обработке его данных,
involved,
ну, то есть
involved
активное
in
участие,
their
знаете, как
data
мы,
processing,
когда
you know,
в
like
важные системы заходим, они нам присылают
if we come to
хорошие системы, они нам
important
присылают
systems,
уведомления.
they send us
Ваша
like
учетная запись
notification.
только что зашла.
Your
И на
your
вас появилось новое
account has been
устройство.
entered into.
Так вот, это
Somebody
активная
entered into your
позиция гражданина,
account,
начинает в этом участвовать. Он может
and
нажать на
citizens
кнопку,
begin
что-то не
to
так.
like can push the
Он
button like
может
this is not me or
посмотреть
it's
список
me.
устройств, которых он
They can
заходил.
check the number
И
of
то
their
же самое касается
devices.
персональных
And the
данных.
same
Если
is
бы
true
каждому
for personal
гражданину
data.
дадим такую
If each
возможность,
citizen
это
will
было
be
бы,
given
конечно,
this kind of
колоссальным
opportunity, this would be
увеличением
like colossal
ответственности
increase
хранения персональных. Мы
of
хотя бы сможем
responsibility
понимать,
of storing
когда
personal
нам звонят и
data.
говорят:
With this,
«Владимир,
we'll know,
мы хотим
hey,
вам продать
Vladimir,
окна,
I want to sell you some
я
windows, and
вам дал
I will know.
согласие». Есть
Have I
как?
given them
Как вы слышите,
consent?
что я им дал согласие? И если
How
нет,
do they
можно
know
прям
my
пожаловаться в
my phone? And I can
что
complain to
Роскомнадзор пошел,
Roskomnadzor
такое вышло.
agency for them to find
Эта
out like
инициатива,
how
мы
it
очень
happened.
надеемся, что она к чему-то приведет.
And
Пока мы
we
не
hope that this
справляемся в её,
initiative
скажем так, продвижении.
will happen. So far, we cannot promote it. Vladimir, you're saying this. Like, great, it's amazing. Sorry, guys, our time is up.
Сигналят.
our time is up.
Программа «В гостях у сказки». То есть, вот, когда все так
You
будет,
know,
мне
like,
кажется, что все консультанты, я в том
if it's
числе,
gonna happen like
заработают.
that, I think all the consultants, like myself, will be unemployed.
Прекращается.
You can revote the information and okay, your data
И,
will not be
собственно, коллеги,
processed.
завершая нашу сегодняшнюю сессию,
Well,
на что бы я хотел обратить ваше
wrapping up our
внимание,
session, I want to
многие из вас,
say,
особенно бизнес, воспринимают
many of
владение
us, especially
цифровых
in
данных,
business,
доступ к ним как обыденность,
we consider
да, как
data processing as
фундаментальное
like a
право. На самом деле,
day-to-day
это большая
routine, as a
привилегия.
fundamental right,
Мне кажется, что
but it's a
всем нам, в том
privilege.
числе людям, которые
And all of
помогают
us,
бизнесу,
and
да,
those
с
who are
точки зрения
helping
безопасности,
businesses
обеспечивать защищенность
in
персональных данных,
InfoSec
предотвращать,
to protect personal
нужно сделать
data,
всё, чтобы таких
we
фактов было
need
как
to
можно
make
меньше, иначе
sure
мы с
that
вами
this
окажемся в ситуации,
would not be a
персональные
common
данные
story,
под угрозой.
or
Вот, наверное,
we
на этом как бы
will
я сессию
be in a
завершаю.
very like a
Большое
dire
вам спасибо
straits.
за ваше
Thank you so much for your attention.